Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. New York. The city never slept, and its streets vibrated with an incessant mix of honking horns, hurried footsteps, and the murmur of life. In a modest but bustling neighborhood, stood the small garage of Marcus Johnson, a 30-year-old mechanic of renowned talent but with a small pocket. His workshop, surrounded by walls covered with vintage car posters and engine sketches, smelled of oil, metal, and hot coffee. Marcus loved the smell. It reminded him of his early days, helping his father dismantle old engines in the same garage. Despite his exceptional talent, Marcus lived a simple life. He had learned to repair any engine, whether it was for a car, a wheelchair, or even a small robot. It wasn't fame that motivated him, but the satisfaction of seeing something broken come back to life. His reputation spread throughout the neighborhood, but he never imagined that his next client would turn his life upside down. One rainy autumn morning, as raindrops pounded against the tin roof of her garage, a woman rushed in, pushing a seemingly flimsy wheelchair. Her eyes reflected panic and worry. Sitting inside was a boy of about 10 years old. Ethan Parker looked around with a mixture of curiosity and resignation. The chair was broken, a bent wheel, a motor that no longer responded, and a half-dead battery. "Please," the woman said, her voice trembling. "My son has a robotics competition in a few days, and this chair is his only mobility. No one has been able to fix it." Marcus knelt down to inspect the plane. The engine was completely burnt out, and some parts were impossible to find in stores. Yet Marcus wasn't intimidated. He saw something in Ethan's eyes that went beyond fear, a spark of determination, a courage few people his age possessed. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it," he replied calmly. "But you'll have to be patient. I can't promise it'll be quick, but I promise it will work." Ethan smiled shyly, and for the first time in weeks, his face showed a hint of relief. Marcus knew this wasn't just a chair repair. This was an act that would transform this boy's life, and maybe his own, too. As he began to disassemble the engine, the first light of morning filtered through the dirty windows of the garage, illuminating the scattered tools and plans. Every part he touched, every wire he reconnected, was imbued with precision, patience, and a certain hope. Little did Marcus know, this simple act would open the door to a world of luxury, recognition, and unexpected events, where his humble but genuine talent would propel him into the spotlight in ways he never dared to imagine. Chance had just knocked on Marcus Johnson's garage door, and he was ready to answer. The next morning, Marcus Johnson's garage bustles with the familiar sound of engines and wrenches rattling together. Yet the arrival of Ethan Parker and his mother, Laura, created a special tension. Marcus watched them approach, Ethan in his wheelchair, his eyes sparkling with curiosity despite his mother's nervousness. "Hello, Mr. Johnson," Laura began hesitantly. "Thank you again for having us, we really couldn't find anyone else." Marcus nodded, giving a reassuring smile. "No problem. I'll see what I can do." He knelt down by Ethan's chair and began inspecting every cable, every wheel. This engine has seen better days," he murmured, shaking his head slightly. "And some parts aren't commercially available anymore." Ethan leaned forward, intrigued. "Mr. Johnson, can you really fix it? Even if it's old?" Marcus looked up, catching the wonder in the boy's eyes. "Look. I'm not promising instant miracles, but I can guarantee he'll be rolling again." Ethan smiled shyly. "Thank you, that means a lot to me." As Marcus disassembled the engine, Ethan watched with fascination. Every precise movement, every tool he chose, seemed to transform the garage into a magical place. Ethan, passionate about mechanics despite his young age, asked questions about each step. "Why unscrew this first?" or "Will this part hold up?" Marcus explained patiently, using simple but precise words, while sketching diagrams on a piece of cardboard. Little by little, a bond was formed between the mechanic and the boy. There was something deeper in their exchanges than a simple repair. Marcus saw in Ethan the determination and curiosity that had always guided him, and Ethan saw in Marcus a mentor, an inspiring figure capable of transforming an impossible problem into a tangible solution. Laura stood back, watching the scene with emotion. She felt the weight of her worry lift. "I think he's in good hands," she whispered quietly, almost to herself. As Marcus continued his work, there was a metallic clang, a bent wheel squeaked as he gently turned it. "Ah, this one's badly damaged, but nothing insurmountable," Marcus said with a reassuring wink. Ethan, his eyes shining, smiled radiantly. "You really are a magician, Mr. Johnson." Marcus burst out laughing. "Not a magician, just someone who likes to fix things." At that moment, he still didn't know that this seemingly ordinary armchair would become the starting point for a series of events that would turn his life and the boy's life upside down, an adventure full of challenges, surprises, and unexpected encounters. The next morning, Marcus rose before dawn. The air was crisp and heavy with the scent of fallen leaves in the neighborhood. He knew that repairing Ethan's wheelchair would be no ordinary task. The motor was old, some parts had been discontinued for years, and the complexity of the device exceeded that of conventional wheelchairs. But Marcus loved a challenge. In his workshop, he laid out plans, tools, and spare parts he had collected over the years. Every detail mattered: one poorly made weld, one loose cable, and the chair wouldn't work. He worked for hours, shaping parts from recycled metal and adapting modern components to an old engine. His concentration was total. Meanwhile, Ethan came home from school, urged on by his mother. He watched Marcus with admiration and insatiable curiosity. "Mr. Johnson, how do you know this will work?" he asked, tilting his head to the side. Marcus smiled, wiping his greasy hands on a rag. "I never know in advance, Ethan. But every problem has a solution, it just takes the right angle, the right room, and a lot of patience." Ethan, fascinated, took out a small notebook in which he drew robots and inventions he hoped to create one day. "I would like to invent something like that," he said, pointing to a wheel he had drawn for a robot. "But I don't know if I could." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "You can. Look at me. If I had given up on every impossible problem, I would never have fixed all those cars. The same logic applies to your robots. You must persevere, test, fail, and try again." Ethan's mother, Laura, watched them with emotion. She saw how Marcus had managed to turn a simple repair into a life lesson for her son. She understood that this boy wasn't just lucky to have a repaired chair, he had found a mentor. After several hours, the engine began to show signs of life. A small, steady noise, like a heart starting to beat again, echoed through the workshop. Ethan jumped for joy. "It works. You're amazing." Marcus shook his head modestly. "We're not there yet. We need to test all the functions, check the cables, the battery, and make a few adjustments. But yes, we're making progress." That day marked the beginning of a strong bond between Marcus and Ethan, built on respect, patience, and a passion for mechanics. For Marcus, it wasn't just a technical challenge, it was a chance to change the life of a brave child. And for Ethan, every moment spent with Marcus was a lesson in courage, determination, and hope. This chair, which seemed so simple, became much more than a means of mobility. It symbolized the audacity to dream and to persevere, even in the face of the impossible. After 3 days of hard work, Ethan's wheelchair was finally ready. Marcus spent the morning checking every cable, testing the motor, and making sure the battery would last all day. The air in the garage was thick with anticipation. For Marcus, this was more than just a repair; for Ethan, it was the promise of newfound freedom. Laura walked into the workshop with Ethan, her eyes full of hope and nervousness. "Is he ready?" she asked softly. Marcus smiled, wiping his greasy hands. "Yes. He's ready. But the most important test is yet to come." Ethan climbed into the chair cautiously. His small hands trembled slightly as he took the controls, but his gaze was determined. Marcus pressed the start button, and the engine purred perfectly, steady and powerful. Ethan moved forward a few inches, then turned with ease, a big smile lighting up his face. I can move," he exclaimed, his eyes shining with emotion. He took a short walk around the garage, dodging tools and crates with surprising precision. Laura burst into tears of relief and happiness. "Marcus, you've performed a miracle." Marcus shook his head modestly. "It's not a miracle. Just patience and hard work. But I'm glad it's working." Ethan stopped in front of Marcus and extended his hand. "Thank you, so much. You're my hero." This simple sentence touched Marcus deeply. He realized that his passion for mechanics had not only repaired a chair, it had given a child back some of his independence, dignity, and self-confidence. Laura, still emotional, offered Marcus a reward, but he politely declined. "I didn't do it for the money. Your son deserves to be able to go wherever he wants. And I'm just happy I could help." This quiet success marked a turning point in Ethan's life. He regained confidence, moved with ease, and rediscovered his curiosity and energy. For Marcus, it was confirmation that his work, however humble, had a real and profound impact. As Ethan moved away in his chair, Marcus thought about the future. This boy had potential, and he wanted to do more than just fix machines. He wanted to inspire Ethan, to show him that nothing was impossible with patience, courage, and determination. This small victory, simple and discreet in the eyes of the world, was in reality a silent feat, that of restoring hope and freedom to a courageous child. And Marcus still did not know that this gesture would open the doors to a world he could never have imagined. The next day, as Marcus opened his garage for another day of work, he noticed a subtle change in the air. Neighbors, who often walked by without paying attention, stopped to give him smiles or a simple wave. Some whispered under their breath as they watched him work on an old engine, "He's the one who fixed Ethan's wheelchair, the boy everyone was talking about." Marcus shrugged, a little embarrassed by the sudden attention. He'd never sought recognition. For him, helping Ethan had been a natural gesture, an act of solidarity. But little by little, he realized that the neighborhood residents were beginning to see him as more than just a mechanic. They saw a generous, competent, and trustworthy man. Ethan often came home after school, always curious and talkative. He told his friends how Marcus had patiently and ingeniously repaired his wheelchair. The children spoke of him as a hero. "Marcus can fix anything. Even the things no one else can." Ethan's mother, Laura, was delighted by this positive influence on her son. She saw how Ethan was blossoming, and how the respect and admiration he showed Marcus made him even more confident. "Marcus," she said to him one morning as he walked into the garage, "you've changed more than Ethan's chair, you've changed his life." Marcus just smiled modestly. "I'm just doing what I can," he replied, but deep down he felt a pride he'd never known. He understood that every repair, every act of kindness, could have a far greater impact than he imagined. As the days passed, Marcus's reputation grew. Soon, customers from other neighborhoods began coming through his garage door, not only for his mechanical skills, but also for his reputation as an honest and caring man. The small, unassuming, and often overlooked garage became a place where people came for advice, repairs, and inspiration. But Marcus sensed that Ethan's story was just the beginning. He had discovered that by helping others, he could positively influence their lives and give them confidence. He found himself dreaming of new projects, training local youth, creating solutions to help those in difficulty. The world seemed to open up before him, little by little. As he put away his tools at the end of the day, Marcus looked up at the orange-tinted sunset sky. A thought crossed his mind: what if this chair was just the beginning? What if this simple gesture opened doors I never dared to imagine? Chance had put Ethan in his path. The city was beginning to take notice of Marcus. And soon, what had started as a simple repair would turn into something much bigger. A few days after Ethan's chair was repaired, Marcus continued his daily routine in his small garage. The phone rang, and he answered, a little surprised. "Hello, am I at Marcus Johnson's garage?" The voice, soft but assured, belonged to a woman. "Yes, it's me. My name is Madeline Harris. I heard about your talent through a friend, and I need your help. Marcus frowned. Madeline Harris was known in the city as one of the richest and most influential heiresses, but also as a demanding woman renowned for her arrogance. He hadn't expected to receive a call from such a prominent figure. I have a very special, sophisticated armchair, she continued. I travel a lot, sometimes by private jet, and I haven't found anyone who can properly repair it. Would you be available to come to my home? Marcus hesitated for a moment, aware that this might be a completely different world from his neighborhood. But the opportunity and the trust this woman placed in him were too rare to refuse. Yes. I can come, he finally replied. The next day, Marcus drove to Madeline's mansion, located in one of the city's most luxurious neighborhoods. As he approached, he was struck by the opulence: classic cars parked along the driveway, a magnificently ornate wrought iron gate, and gardens tended with almost obsessive care. Marcus could sense the difference between that world and his own, but he remained calm. Inside, the atmosphere was just as impressive. Gigantic chandeliers lit marble corridors, and the walls were decorated with paintings and sculptures. Madeline, sitting in her state-of-the-art electric chair, watched him with a gaze that was both demanding and curious. Marcus, thank you for coming, she said. If you can fix my chair, you'll not only have my respect, but I'll make sure your work is recognized. Marcus bowed slightly. I'll do my best, Mrs. Harris. As he began the inspection, he quickly realized that this chair was far more complex than Ethan's: hybrid motor, sophisticated electronic controls, and an advanced assistance system. Every cable, every component had to be perfectly calibrated. Marcus focused, and for hours, he worked with the same patience and precision he had applied for Ethan. Madeline watched him silently. As the hours passed, she felt an unexpected admiration grow within her. Marcus wasn't just a mechanic, he was an artist, an engineer, and above all, an honest and humble man. She had never seen anyone work with such rigor and dedication. At the end of the day, Marcus wiped his forehead and gave a small smile. Everything is ready. I've tested every function. You can try it out. Madeline moved her chair, adjusted the speed and direction, and immediately felt the fluidity and responsiveness. Amazing, you are exceptional, she murmured, impressed. For Marcus, this experience was revelatory. He had entered a world of luxury and opulence, but remained himself. He understood that regardless of prestige or money, competence and integrity opened doors far greater than any inheritance. And he still didn't know that this repair would be the beginning of unexpected events, which would propel him into a world where his talent would be recognized, admired, and celebrated. The next day, Marcus returned to Madeline Harris's mansion to finalize some adjustments to the chair and ensure everything was working perfectly. As soon as he stepped through the door, he was struck by the vastness of the entrance hall. The marble floors reflected the light from the immense chandeliers, and contemporary sculptures proudly stood in every corner. Marcus felt a mixture of fascination and unease. He had never been confronted with such luxury. Madeline greeted him from her state-of-the-art motorized wheelchair, a barely perceptible smile on her lips. Marcus, I hope you're ready for the final leg, she said, her voice firm and authoritative. Marcus nodded, trying to hide his wonder. He had grown up in a modest neighborhood, surrounded by garages and simple houses. This world seemed unreal, almost intimidating. But he remembered why he was there, his talent and his determination. As he worked on the chair, several assistants and housekeepers passed by, watching him curiously. Some whispered, surprised to see a black mechanic handling tools so expertly in such a luxurious setting. Marcus felt the weight of their stares, but he didn't let himself be distracted. His goal was clear: to repair the chair perfectly. As the hours passed, he finally adjusted the motor, calibrated the electronic controls, and tested the battery. Madeline watched every step, and a genuine smile finally appeared on her face as she felt the chair's fluidity. You're really good, she admitted, a little surprised at her own admiration. Marcus remained humble. It's not complicated when you know your craft. Each piece simply has to be in harmony with the others. But this world of wealth and opulence gave him a glimpse of what he had never imagined, a life where talent alone could open doors he would never have dared to cross. The domestic staff now looked at him with respect, some even with a hint of jealousy. Marcus understood that, in this world, his skills set him apart, not his skin color or social status. At the end of the day, Madeline thanked him warmly. "Marcus, you have transformed this chair into a marvel. You have my respect, and I think the world should know it." Marcus left the mansion, his heart light but his mind buzzing. He had proven his skill, and for the first time, he felt that his talent could propel him far beyond the confines of his neighborhood. Little did he know, Madeline's private jet would soon offer him an experience that would change his life, forever. A few days later, Madeline invited Marcus to board her private jet for a short trip to her second home. Marcus, accustomed to garages and city roads, had never been in a private plane. Excitement mingled with slight apprehension. As he landed on the private runway, the jet's crew greeted him with suspicious looks. Some whispered among themselves, intrigued to see a black engineer boarding without being an official guest. "Sir, I'm sorry, but you can't get through," said a steward with almost protocolary rigidity. Marcus remained calm. "I'm here at Mrs. Harris's invitation. She asked me to check the chair before we leave." Madeline, who had moved closer, intervened immediately, her firm voice echoing through the hangar, "Let him pass. He saved me. Without him, I wouldn't be able to move properly." The employees, surprised by Madeline's authority and determination, bowed slightly and stepped back, allowing Marcus to pass. He boarded, still marveling at the interior's luxury, cream leather seats, state-of-the-art electronic consoles, and panoramic views of the runway from the windows. As the jet took off, Marcus realized that this place, so different from his garage and his neighborhood, represented a world where his talent could be recognized and respected, regardless of his color or background. Every detail of the jet spoke to Madeline's power and wealth, but also to the trust she placed in him. However, the staff, though respectful after Madeline's intervention, continued to observe her discreetly. Some seemed to be waiting for the slightest misstep, unable to believe that a mere mechanic could deserve his place on board. Marcus sensed the tension but remained focused on his mission, to check the chair and ensure everything was working perfectly. As Madeline moved to test the chair in flight, Marcus quickly adjusted the controls and final calibrations. The chair responded perfectly, smooth and responsive, and Madeline smiled with satisfaction. "Perfect, Marcus, perfect." This small success in a world of luxury was a powerful reminder for Marcus. His work and integrity spoke for themselves. He had overcome the silent doubt and prejudice of others. But he still didn't know that the landing would reveal an even greater surprise, capable of completely upending his life and making him the center of everyone's attention. Madeline Harris's jet finally touched down on a small private runway, bathed in the golden evening light. Marcus, still awed by the experience, cautiously descended, his mind still awestruck by the plane's luxurious interior. Upon their arrival, an unexpected scene unfolded. Several journalists, photographers, and select guests were already present on the tarmac. Everyone expected Madeline to make a spectacular appearance, hailed as the bold and influential heiress she was. Yet, as she stepped off the jet, she gestured for Marcus to go ahead of her. Photographers trained their cameras on him. Flashes popped, capturing his image, a young black mechanic, dressed simply in jeans and an oil-stained shirt, walking calmly and confidently alongside the heiress. The guests' murmurs turned to astonishment. "Who is this man?" someone asked. "He seems important." Madeline smiled and, in a strong but elegant voice, announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Marcus Johnson, the man who repaired my wheelchair and made my journey possible today. His talent and dedication deserve recognition." Marcus remained humble, slightly embarrassed by all the attention. He wasn't used to being in the spotlight. Yet, a new feeling welled up within him, pride. A recognition that depended neither on money nor social status, but solely on respect for his work and his integrity. Journalists flocked to get interviews. The guests, impressed, applauded him, and some even went so far as to shake his hand, amazed by the simplicity and competence of this man, whom society often ignored. Marcus then understood something fundamental: no matter where you come from, what you accomplish with talent and heart can turn the world around you upside down. Ethan and his mother, alerted by phone, arrived at the dance floor in turn. The little boy looked at Marcus with eyes shining with pride. "He's my hero," he shouted, and Laura burst into tears, moved to see Marcus's recognition materialize in such a spectacular way. That day, Marcus Johnson realized his life had changed. He was no longer just a local mechanic, he had become a symbol of skill, determination, and integrity. The simple act of repairing a wheelchair had set in motion a chain of events that would propel his life toward a future he could never have imagined. And, in his mind, he knew one thing: this was just the beginning. The world had just noticed Marcus, and it wasn't about to forget. In the days following the dramatic landing, Marcus Johnson became the center of attention. Local media published articles and reports about "the mechanic who changes lives," recounting his story with Ethan Parker and his meeting with Madeline Harris. Social media seized on the news, sharing photos of Marcus on the jet's tarmac, walking calmly alongside the heiress. In his neighborhood, residents now looked at him with admiration and respect. Children spoke of him as a hero, and even neighbors who had previously been indifferent came to greet him with a smile or an encouraging word. Marcus, true to himself, remained humble. Every time he received a round of applause, he thought of Ethan and all the other young people he could inspire. Ethan, delighted, moved around in his newfound wheelchair and proudly told his friends how Marcus had changed his life. "He doesn't just fix machines, he changes lives," he proclaimed enthusiastically. Ethan's mother, Laura, couldn't believe the impact Marcus had had, not only on her son, but on the entire neighborhood. She knew he deserved every word of admiration, every smile, and every public acknowledgement. "Marcus, you are an inspiration," she told him one morning as she brought him coffee. "I've never seen someone have such an impact simply by doing what they love." But for Marcus, the real reward wasn't fame or articles. It was in Ethan's gaze, the confidence he inspired, and the deep sense of having accomplished something significant. He realized that his talent, patience, and generosity were more valuable than any material recognition. With this newfound visibility, Marcus decided to take a step he'd never considered, using his experience to help more disadvantaged youth learn mechanics and engineering. He envisioned a program where he could teach his skills, encourage curiosity, and restore confidence to kids like Ethan who dreamed of pushing their limits despite the odds. Respect and recognition came from all sides, but Marcus remained true to his values: hard work, patience, and integrity. He knew his true mission went beyond repairing chairs or engines; it was about changing lives, one action at a time. This chapter of his life closed with one certainty: Marcus Johnson was no longer just a mechanic. He had become a symbol, a source of inspiration, and a living example of what courage, talent, and generosity can accomplish in an often indifferent world. A few weeks after the media acclaim, Marcus Johnson felt his life was entering a new chapter. The small garage in his modest neighborhood was now too small to contain all the ideas and projects bubbling through his mind. He wanted to do more than repair chairs or engines; he wanted to pass on his knowledge, inspire, and give young people the tools to push their limits. With the help of Laura and Ethan, who supported him every step of the way, Marcus set up a community program in which he taught mechanics, engineering, and electronics to local children and teenagers. Each class was a lesson in technique, but also in perseverance, patience, and self-confidence. Children flocked to him, fascinated by his passion and expertise, and Ethan, now independent in his wheelchair, actively participated by encouraging others. One day, while explaining to a group how to calibrate an electric motor, Marcus stopped and looked around the room. The focused faces, the hands working on the small parts, the eyes shining with curiosity and wonder, it all reminded him of his own childhood in the family garage. He smiled, realizing that the circle of his life had just come full circle. He was transforming lives, just as others had guided him before him. The media continued to follow his journey, but Marcus was no longer impressed by the spotlight. What mattered now was the real impact of his actions. Every success of a young person he had helped, every smile of a child who regained confidence in their abilities, was a victory far greater than any public recognition. And then, one day, an unexpected letter arrived. Madeline Harris, recognizing Marcus's potential, offered him a partnership to develop technical innovations for people with limited mobility. The project could touch thousands of lives across the country. Marcus felt a surge of excitement and responsibility. He understood that his passion, skill, and generosity could now change the world on a much larger scale. As he gazed out at the horizon from his garage-turned-studio school, Marcus felt a deep certainty wash over him. He had found his calling. His talent had opened doors he would never have dared to cross, and every obstacle in his path had been but a step toward a bright and promising future. The little boy who had learned to dream despite the difficulties, the humble and passionate mechanic, both had forged a path that extended far beyond their individual lives. Marcus Johnson's future was opening up, vast, bright, and filled with infinite possibilities. And he knew this was just the beginning of an even bigger adventure. A few years later, the small garage where it all began had grown into a respected training center, run by Marcus Johnson and a dedicated team of mentors and volunteers. The children and teenagers who attended the workshop learned not only mechanics and engineering, but also lessons in courage, patience, and perseverance. Ethan, now a teenager, moved with ease in his perfectly adapted chair and enthusiastically guided the younger children. His eyes reflected a confidence he never thought possible, and he knew he owed this transformation to Marcus. "You gave me freedom, and now I can help others," he often told him with a radiant smile. Marcus, humble as ever, watched this new generation with pride. Every smile, every technical discovery, every student's success was a silent victory for him. He knew that his gesture, so simple at first, repairing a boy's wheelchair, had triggered a chain of transformations that extended far beyond his own life. Madeline Harris continued to support Marcus's endeavors, but now he no longer needed the recognition of others to feel accomplished. The true reward was in the lasting impact he had created: lives changed, dreams rekindled, barriers broken down. One evening, as he was closing up the shop, Marcus stopped in front of the old armchair he had first repaired for Ethan. He gently stroked the seat, a reminder of the day it all began. A simple gesture, a talent put to the service of others, and proof that even modest actions can spark revolutions in lives and hearts. And as the dusk light bathed the neighborhood, Marcus smiled as he thought about the future. He knew that as long as he continued to work with passion and integrity, his legacy would continue through every child he had helped dream and grow. Because sometimes, a simple act of kindness is enough to change the world, and Marcus Johnson had proven it, silently but powerfully.